into that.
I'll call the meeting to order. All those that can, please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
All right, Mrs. McDonald has reported that she'll be here about a half hour late. Otherwise, everyone is present and accounted for.
All right, approval of the agenda.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, consent agenda approval. Would you like to make a motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Stereo.
Brian,
Yeah,
you
we'd
got
like to be
first.
first.
Brian was first then. Okay.
All right.
Sean wins.
Ready to vote?
All right, ready to vote?
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, we are flying through and our presenters aren't going to be here, aren't here yet, so. Announcements and information inquiry. Highland Township offices will be closed on Monday, September 4th in observance of Labor Day. Anybody else have anything they'd like to announce or? Yes.
I'm just going to give it's my every meeting I'm doing, a shout out to Missy again on the concert series. Had somebody new last night that she's going out and finding some new acts, and I was talked to about 2 or 3 people today that were very impressed. And I even read one on Facebook somewhere, somebody posted something on Highland Matters or something that they really enjoyed the band last night and hoping they would be brought back in future years. So I just want to say you're doing a great job with everything. It's finally,
Yes.
it's going, so it's good. Good crowds and great weather. So and Eugene Peep says the weather's all because of him. So
And to add on, and I know this has been mentioned before about the banners, I continue to hear positive feedback from people on those banners.
Oh,
I'm hearing lots of good things.
Thank you.
great job.
Good. All right. I would like to, anybody that hasn't seen the newspaper yet, the results of the medical marijuana survey are posted in the paper, and it's up to whoever wants to read them to figure out what they want to get out of it. So the board at this point, from my perspective, we haven't received hardly any information from the state that would give us the directions that we really need to make any decisions to go further. So until the state does its job and completes its work, which is getting the details down, I'm not going to bring anything to the board to make a decision on until that point. So there's still more to learn, and the public's made, the public being, albeit limited, we didn't get as many responses I wish we would have. 361, I think, was the number. 369. And out of, how many did we send out?
8,400.
8,400. That's, I wouldn't want to create a democracy on that number.
Small sampling.
So it's a pretty small sampling, but I think what it does say is there are some people out there that have strong opinions, and their opinions were stated. So I'll let the documents make that comment from there. So I appreciate the input from anybody that's given it to us. We kind of have to do a little delay process here because we're expecting some engineers to do a master plan update. So let's see, what could we do?
Move down the agenda.
Move down the agenda.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
You
let's
can
do
move
that.
to table the item to later in the agenda.
All right, I'll make a motion to table the item for later in the agenda.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Gary. So we'll move on to new business. We need to open the bids for the Silverado, Chevy Silverado that the fire department is.
First one, you can read them. Okay.
Okay. The first one. I guess we can do it this way. This is from Kimberly Viner. Now we know why you're here. I bid $100 over the highest bidder, not to exceed $7,900.
I don't know if you can do that. Why can't you do that? There were no rules.
You have to bid a sum certain. So, I mean, you would take that bid as being $7,900 unless she wants to withdraw the bid entirely.
What do you want to do?
It's legal. What do you mean? It's legal to do what?
It's legal to propose a bid like that. They do it in real estate, they do it in a whole lot of things.
It's not legal while I'm sitting here.
It's legal on Barrett and Jackson. People call it in.
Mr. Reader, comment?
We don't do that in real estate. I know that got to be popular for a while, but it's really, I mean, it's really hard to prove funds and everything else, that's all, in our business.
Well, what
We
if
haven't-
somebody
Well,
else
we had three
bid
of them like that.
$101 more, and then that would, would that be $101 more than your bid? Like, which one? What order would you take them in?
Well, I have a cap on there, I mean,
I guess what you want to do is you want to make the decision whether your cap is your bid or withdraw your bid.
And if she doesn't do either of those, the board can reject the bid as not conforming.
but there were no rules. So
We did not
it's
set any
not
specific
non-conforming.
rules, and I guess that's,
There were no guidelines or rules. It was just place a bid and put your name on it.
okay, we haven't looked at any other bids. Is there any impropriety to give this back to her and have her place a bid
The
and
deadline is
resubmit it,
passed.
even though she met the deadline before?
I've indicated what I think the choices are.
Okay,
And
we're going to stick
I'm-
with our attorney on that one.
I mean, I've seen bid processes in municipalities for decades. I have never seen a bid that's submitted
Well, I've watched
to that
some like car
effect.
shows.
And this is not a car show.
But it is an auction.
This is a municipal government that, I mean, I'm sure every board member finds a problem with that approach. It's not fair to other people that may submit a bid.
It's creative.
The essence of a public bid process is to find the best bid, but it's also to be fair to everyone. That is not fair.
This was not an auction, was
No.
It's a sealed bid. So, do you want to maintain the 7,900, or do you want to retract your bid?
Sure, I'll retain it.
Okay? So we have one that's $7,900. Okay, I, Kevin Russell, would like to bid $7,555 on the 2000 Chevy Silverado 2500. So we have a $7,555 bid. Chris Kopacki, 381 East Livingston in Highland, he bids $6,888. And we had 3 bids or 4?
it? Papers keep getting smaller.
John Mahalik, his bid is $6,877. I think everybody surprised me. So it looks like the high bid is $7,900. It goes to Kim Viner.
Can you address the board briefly?
Yes.
Does someone have the notice handy that was issued for this? I don't. And
Yeah. Do you want me to read it, or do you want to look at it?
if I could look at it very quickly.
And deposit.
It's a cash thing.
Thank you.
Would you like to offer, say?
Does the board have
written,
any established past practice in terms of how long after a bid is accepted that someone has to perform by making the payment?
I have to look it up, I don't know.
I don't know that we've, as long as I've been here, there's been no time.
I
frame.
remember reading in the, that was just like in the board policy, I thought it was 7 days. You had to.
I thought there's a time on it too, but I don't know what it is offhand.
It's not stated in our,
It's not stated in that notice. My recommendation would be that the board accept the high bid and establish a deadline for the bid to be paid, and if that does not occur, to award the bid to the second high bidder. And since the person with the high bid is here, it would be appropriate to inquire when she would be ready to make the payment. Well, then 7 days is fine.
all right? And
You
I'll make
want
them,
cash or check?
what's that?
Would you prefer cash or check?
Treasurer?
Okay.
Right, so I'll make the motion that we accept the highest bid of $7,900 to Kim Viner with the requirement that the payment be made within 7 days.
And if not, to award the bid to the second high bidder.
And if not, to award the bid to the second highest bidder.
Support?
Okay, Joe, support?
Very
Okay.
happy.
Okay, moved and supported?
All right, I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Kim?
Thank you. Well, I can put mine out for sale.
And you can sell it the way you bid it.
That's okay, I will. Thank you.
Put that on Barrett Jackson
Thank
for
you,
us.
Kim.
Actually, that,
That's creative, you're right.
I'm gonna give that one a kudos. I mean, that thing sold for a lot more than I thought it would, and she stuck to it and won, so good deal.
Bids actually came in a lot higher than I was expecting.
What's that?
Bids came in a lot higher than I was expecting.
Yeah, me too. All right, the next item, item B, the 8B. That is, how do we describe this, Gary? You wanna, we've got a memorandum here.
Just for the board to approve and authorize signature on the stipulated Second Amendment to consent judgment with the attached exhibits A and B.
Okay,
I
somebody
mean,
wanna make a
Beth is
motion
way
to do that?
more familiar with this than I am, but that would be your motion, and I think she put that in her actual memo. The only thing I had noted was that the exhibits.
So I guess to expedite this, I'll make the motion to authorize, I better not, I'm the supervisor, I should let somebody else make that motion.
I would move to authorize the clerk and the supervisor to sign the stipulated order of Second Amendment of consent judgment for case number 02-039581-CE, Levy, Indiana Slag Company versus Highland Township as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported?
Mr.
Vote, please.
Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carried.
All right, next item, C, award bid for paving project for the annex and the senior center. I was the person that took the front seat on this one, and there were 5 bids if you look in your packet. They ranged from as much as, I got the wrong sheet in here, but if you combine them, there was a high bidder that was over, and I'll just use the annex as the initial one.
Got it right there.
Well, I have a thing, but I had totaled them together, so.
Oh,
We had R&R Asphalt, who bid $32,488 and some pennies. Nagel Paving, these are for the annex, $52,890. Allied Construction, $37,480. A&R Seal Coating, $46,410. Bowen Paving, $30,655. Guardian, $25,900. Then when we go, I'll go in reverse and give you the repair for the parking lot at the activity center. And to make a note, only 2 of them actually measured the area that I painted out. So there's differences that I had to look at in terms of square footage. Guardian was $5,300. Bowen Paving was $11,688. A&R was $6,675. Allied was $10,280. Nagel was $12,890, and R&R was $7,394.30. I went and inspected jobs done by all of the contractors to verify the quality of the workmanship done. I talked to the owners of the projects that they were done at to verify that they were happy. I then looked at it from the perspective of I know what the project entails in terms of difficulty, and I took the lowest and the highest bids and threw those out to begin with, and then recommended R&R Asphalt, and I did it by combining both projects together. So R&R came in under or higher than Guardian, but under the rest. Now, what I wanted to do was to give the trustees an example of what the rationale behind that is. If you take Guardian's quote, their quote is to saw cut the existing driveway, regrade existing gravel, and level. Machine in on an average of 3 inches of hot top commercial asphalt mix compacted to 3 inches. That's $25,900. R&R Asphalt, remove all the bumper blocks, so they actually detail what they're going to be doing and all that are in there. All existing asphalt removed down to the subgrade. Subgrade will be excavated and replaced with 21 AA crushed concrete to a depth of 8 inches. 1.5 inches of 1100L asphalt will be furnished, installed, and compacted. Tack will be installed to ensure proper adhesion. A finish coat of 1.5 inch of 1100T will be furnished and compacted in place as a wearing course. If there's any additional grade work that needs to be done below a depth of 11 inches, then additional costs will apply, and they would result in $40 a ton. So to make apples to apples, if you were to excavate 8 inches and put in 21 AA crush, that's 396 tons of gravel at $37 a ton. Then that would make $14,652 additional cost for Guardian, which would put them at $40,552. So you have to look at all the little fine print in these things to figure out where they're, how they're saving their money. And then what happens is if we were to take this and it's discovered after they peel this asphalt out that they're going to have to take it out, even more gravel out, then we have to pay additional for it. The truth is that you shouldn't relay on that existing soil because it's probably not up to snuff in the first place. It was asphalted over an original gravel parking lot how many years ago, we don't know, but I know it's extra thick. And the other part is that and I made this kind of a personal thing here. I know the owner of Guardian Seal Coat, and I know that he bid too cheap, and I would hate to see us give him the quote and then put him on a project that he didn't come and talk to me so I could give him the details about possibly 8 inches of asphalt that's there. So you can't just peel out 8 inches of asphalt, put in 3 inches of asphalt, and end up with the project complete to where it should grade to. So I would rather not have him put in a position to be maybe losing money on it, or have us put in a position where we have to cough up another $14,000 to make it work. So that's the rationale behind the recommendation, and so.
Thank you for explaining that, because I was kind of curious
Yeah.
on that too. so thank you.
Question, Rick, do you know, and does anybody give you like a projected life expectancy of this then, you know, comparing the Guardian to the other one? If they went ahead and just, or you're saying that they couldn't do what they said, they would have to do a complete one?
It's pretty, I guess from personal experience, lots of experience, laying asphalt on basic sand or contaminated soils, which are, probably has biomaterial in it, is just not the way to do it. When you put the crushed concrete in, they compact that, and then it solidifies over time, and that's the kind of base you need for a road bed anyways. So what it does is it helps support the load of that asphalt. If you put it on a sandy base, you know, like they might do in a homeowner installation, and then you drive heavy vehicles on it, it'll crush. So it's, the higher priced ones actually all said 8 inches. So plus they have to haul all that stuff away too, so there's a lot to this. And so anyways, I hope everybody understands that.
Yeah,
That's the reason I tell you.
And then, again, how long do you think that this new parking lot been done the correct way? Is it gonna be like 20 years, or
That's
it's hard to tell? I just
That's a
wonder.
tough call. I mean,
Okay.
they did the road out front there in 2012,
I was gonna say, I think it was
and it's
12.
already cracked up all over the place. So, and that was done, you know, commercial pavers, and they added stone and gravel and did everything it's supposed to be. So it's, asphalt is not the best material for longevity, but it's easily repairable. So what happens is that it gets laid in 2 lifts, the 1.5 inches and then 1.5 inches. And part of the rationale behind that is that you can go back in with a grinder and you can grind 1.5 inches off and then reset a new course on top of it, what's there. But if you go in with 1 layer at 3 inches and you try and compact that, which Guardian did, it'll literally squish it out and cause it to go into an elastic mode. And then over time, a short period of time, it starts to shrink back up and it cracks. So that's why you have to be very careful about the foundation. The foundation sets the life of the product.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Dr. Silko.
you're welcome. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, a motion to approve R&R asphalt for both projects.
Both projects.
Okay,
And
and
the amount?
The amounts of $32,488.76 for the annex and $7,394.30 for the activity center.
Support?
That not to exceed.
yes. Thank you.
That was Mary Pat.
Okay.
It's Judy, actually.
All right, Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Who supported that?
Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Now, along with this, and it would be the next item that we kind of should, I think we put it in there. That's what we have to do. No, we don't have to do that, then put you in for that.
No.
All right. That wasn't another thing, that was in the budget for the project. Okay, next item, D, 8D. The 3 in-house officials went through the township purchasing policy, and we assembled a new and improved version. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to go through it. Some of the modifications were we had low numbers of, you had to have 3 written quotes for 2,500 and over. We raised that to 5,000, and then it was 5,000 needed sealed bids. We raised that to 10,000 per item, and or when a single order totals over 5,000. So those written quotes, the written quotes may be received from web-based suppliers, contractors, and/or manufacturers. So part of that came up in a prior term where we purchased the, I think it was the copy machine for the fire department. And what happened is we had quotes from the internet, as well as a quote from our the company that does all our maintenance and has sold us our previous machines. And it turned out that the company that has sold us our machines was still cheaper than the internet. And the board agreed that we would accept the quotations from the websites as quotations and written quotations. So we ended up going with the cheapest, lowest price and the lowest bid. So the idea is that we have a lot more ways of getting information and getting prices and doing comparisons than you used to have just 10 years ago. And so we need to use all the tools that are available and allow them to be acceptable if possible for fulfilling the purchasing policy.
Are we cautious as to who these folks are that we're bidding on the
Yeah, they would be, yeah, I don't know how.
Some kind of scrutiny, because it's a screening.
Right.
People send you information, but where they're responsible for standing in the products.
Yeah, most of the cases, there are companies that would meet the Michigan,
The my dealer, mitten.
yeah, the mitten pricing and stuff, so.
And the board will have a chance to review the quotes and evaluate if they believe they're quality quotes too.
Let's see.
Those were the changes pretty much.
Was that change? Sealed competitive bids required for purchase of 10,000 or more. The purchasing agent will help. That's pretty much the same. We just increased it from 5 to 10.
Did we have this paragraph right in the middle? The purchasing agent is authorized to purchase budgeted goods and services up to 5,000 if funds are available within the budget.
Yeah, that's an additional.
And then notification of the purchase will be made to the board via email or at a regular board meeting.
Right.
I think we added that paragraph.
The idea with that additional statement is if something had to happen quickly, as a day-to-day thing, the purchasing agent, supervisor in this case, could make that type of a call, but in good faith, it makes sense to approach the board with expenditures like that because it keeps it open and honest.
Keeps everybody moving.
Let's see what else we have. I think that's it.
The changes.
Okay, you have any questions? All right, can I get a motion?
I would move to approve the revised purchasing policy as presented.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 And yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, the next item, I'm going to pass off to our community roundtable leader, Judy Cooper.
Okay, Main Street Oakland County has officially granted us a tech visit, and that tech visit is a sum of $7,500, dollar for dollar match towards a branding consultant to move forward with a brand that would consist of, the first phase is a logo, a tagline, and branding standards. So, we're pretty excited about that, and we're just looking for approval from the board. We have 15,000 in the budget, so it's already in the budget, but we're just looking for support from the board, and again, we'll keep everybody in the loop and hopefully move forward.
So I want to add a little bit of history to this. The way this came about is the Community Roundtable initially had its own ideas about branding and going forward with that, and then the DDA has an opportunity through the Main Street program with Oakland County to have what they call tech visits. And the tech visits can consist of up to $5,000 worth of some type of assistance or what have you. And one of the things that we, as me being a part of the DDA board, that we had talked about was relogoing, potentially, possibly, branding, all that stuff. And Missy being on the roundtable, we started to discuss this and went, well, maybe we could all just like kind of join in on this thing and see how that would work. Well, it turns out that Oakland County normally does not do that, and but they have been very generous from the point of view that they like what Highland's done. They like how we've acted as a community. They're impressed with our DDA, they're impressed with our board and how we get along together, and they said that they would agree to kind of expand it. So what we did as a roundtable said, what if we were to match $1 for $1?
This was Beth's suggestion.
And so that was what we suggested, and they came back and said, we will go up to, the county will go up to $7,500. So they moved from $5,000 up to $7,500 and allowed us to do a one-for-one match. So the $7,500 is the roundtable's request to go ahead and to be that match so that we can get to that level. And so what ends up happening is I want to kind of, it's a little difficult to see. This is an example of what happens with branding. And you get programs where they work with color, they work with, there's a lot of things that are involved with it. It's pretty hard to see this stuff, but all the different, maybe a township logo, maybe not, you know, so there's a lot of things that we have to discuss. But you end up with a package that's similar to this that gives you all of the data that helps you
Pull your community together.
Yes.
It's a brand that's used by all the community partners, so it's more of a partnership brand. So, for example, how it would be used on stationery is the township would have their logo on the top, and on the bottom would be the community brand. So it shows through the library, through the police department, through the fire department, through the DDA, that we're all kind of working together and solidifying Highland Township. So, yeah.
And the other thing is it saves us $7,500. So it's kind of a win-win in all those directions. And I think that's pretty exciting myself. I mean,
It is. It's very exciting. So thanks for the DDA for bringing that forward. Thanks to Beth for bringing your suggestion of $1 for $1 and increase that match by 50%. So good stuff.
All right, so anybody have any questions on that? All right, want to make a motion?
There's a suggested motion on the bottom of mine.
Motion to proceed with appropriating the funds to match.
We have a suggested one on the bottom, that'll help you out. Bottom paragraph.
Motion to approve an amount not to exceed $7,500 from the general ledger 101-290-000-973-001 to match Main Street, Oakland County's tech visit valued up to $7,500. To hire a branding consultant to create a Highland community brand consisting of a tagline, logo, and branding standards, and authorize the supervisor to sign any necessary documents.
Support?
Second, okay, good. Moved and supported.
All right.
Vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, thank you, board, that's awesome. We're gonna get to you in a minute. We had you first and you didn't make it on time, so appreciate it. Next item is community sharing contract. Way back last fall when we did the budget, we had allocated money in the budget for community sharing. And what happened was there was a process where we were considering helping them with maybe a piece of property because they had to move. And so rather than giving them the money, we held the money back and said, well, maybe it could be worked out with some type of a land or real estate deal. And, well, anyways, that didn't transpire, so it seemed appropriate we should pay that allocation out. They do have a new home. If you haven't seen it, you ought to go look at it. It's at the Duck Lake Center up on North Duck Lake Road. They have a lot more room. I think it's probably way better than the land deal that they could have worked, because I don't think they would have had enough space after I saw what they have at the school there. So the school system is working with them extremely well. I mean, doing a deal that's hard to believe. So it's hard not to keep them going in that. So what I'd like to do is make a motion that we allocate this $5,000 to assist community sharing in its mission and to serve those in need in our community.
Support?
Question?
By entering into a
To a
public service contract with a description of what they do attached.
Correct. Thank you. Add that
Support.
to it. I even put it here so I could even say that. All right, moved and supported. Vote please.
Did Mary Pam have a question?
I think
Yes.
they answered it right there. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure that.
Okay, Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, next item, election, appointment of election commission. Tammy?
Looking to set up our election commission so we can start working on getting our precinct locations figured out and providing election supplies in the coming years, so. Asking for appointments to be made.
All right, well, I have here that I'd like to make the motion that Mary Pat Chanoweth and Brian Howe, who have agreed to serve on the commission, be appointed.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported?
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, proposal for fire department building assessment. I'll start out, I guess. You want me to start off, help you out on that one? The chief and I have had plenty of conversations about the conditions of the buildings that we have, what kind of investment you might make into the future, and trying to figure out how to get there. You need to have some numbers. You need to have ideas of what it's going to require to do that. And the chief had, from a previous interaction with some people, had a company called Axiom stop in, and we sat down and had a conversation with them. And what Axiom does is they're a design build company that designs and builds not only fire stations, but other stuff. And so this is the opportunity for us to try and have a way to get an RFP. So this is where I'm going to throw it back to the chief to see if he wants to add anything more to that. So
Our buildings were built anywhere from the early 60s to 79. They were designed and put in place when we were running approximately 400 runs a year. Vehicles were much smaller. Weight was much less. Over the years, they put an addition on one of the buildings. They've done the best they can. Unfortunately, some of my buildings are ticking time bombs. My Station 2's apparatus bay is built over the septic field. Boiler at station.
Which one is 2?
Up on Duck.
Okay, thank you.
Which we just spent $10,000 last year on a boiler for that building because of its age. From my perspective, I need to figure out what's going to be best. Do we need to reinvest money into buildings that can follow us through the years? And how much is it going to cost? Or what's our next option? It's actually Partners and Axiom. Partners is the design firm, Axiom is the construction company. I did have prior interactions with Axiom. They built the fire station in Wayne when I was down in Wayne. They've also built numerous fire stations in Van Buren, Dexter. They just got the bid for Birmingham's fire station. They're very adept at building public buildings. So I did reach out. I asked a couple questions. He said, that's not for me to do. I have another company that we work with on a regular basis. We started talking to them, and they came in and made a proposal. It's way beyond my wheelhouse. I'm a fireman. I'm not smart enough to figure out what's going to be our best path for the future. I think that these guys, having a background and experience in it, they would probably be the best route to direct us in the proper path and spend money wisely.
So if the board has read the attachment to that, which is the letter that came from Partners, that they do a very explicit job of outlining what they're attempting to do. Their goal is to prepare a request for proposal. And involved in those, we've had enough trouble. We just had one, I think, with the sale of a truck. We probably, I mean, as simple as that is, that's the kind of thing that you don't want to make these mistakes when you get to this level. I have an uncle, just to give you an idea about understanding architectural stuff, I have an uncle that's an architect and is in charge of Western Michigan University's buildings. University buildings have specific needs, specific designs. You need people who are specialized in being able to build those. Hospitals are another one. Fire buildings are another one. Township facilities. They each have their own requirements that you have to have somebody that's knowledgeable. Anybody can design it, but you might be reinventing the wheel or missing some really critical things. So having somebody with the background in those things to prepare a request for proposal, I think is really pretty important to me, I think to our board. So they're listed out and detailed what they propose to do, how they propose to be compensated, and I think the irony on this is their fee for this, if I read it correctly, is $1,600. I just had an interaction with the library, the board library director, interested in putting in a generator. There's an individual that wants to do a request for proposal, and they'll only charge $18,000. So it's kind of like, ouch, you know, and I suggested we hold off on that type of process because this is way more complicated than putting a gen set in a library. And for that fee, it's kind of like foolish not to really look at that and go. And they're also based on Michigan My Deal billing rates, so they're involved in that program. So if anybody has any questions, please ask now, and we'll see if between the two of us we can kind of answer it.
You said that Axiom or Partners, one of them is a construction company?
Partners is the design agency or architect, and Axiom is the construction company.
Okay.
And
Actually, there's like two companies. They have
two separate entities.
Okay.
but they've worked together on multiple projects, and I think that one of the things that's really critical about working is that, and I've seen it happen plenty of times, you have an architect that designs something, and then you have a builder that comes in and tries to interpret what the architect said, and quite often there's missing pieces, and now you have headbutting. And you're much further along to have a design build team where they understand what the other one's talking about and can solve those issues from the get-go. And there's a lot of design build companies out there, so it's a...
Headbutting turns into finger pointing turns into more headache on our end, and we'd just be further along if we were looking at the design build.
Is this for new renovations or a brand new facility?
This is the recommendations on what direction we should head. And so it could mean new facilities, it could mean repairing some, it could, so that's kind of what the
Okay, so it's an overall review of what's best.
Yep.
Because where we're gonna get the most bang for our buck.
Okay, any other questions?
I apologize for being late.
That's all right, I'm amazed you can make it.
You're gonna stay late.
I have to stay late, okay. So, just to catch me up on this one, we're considering the proposal to hire a company to evaluate all of the fire stations, and that was what my understanding was from the memo.
Yep, and write an RFP
Okay.
for potential implementation of those recommendations. Yes, sir.
Just a quick observation. Obviously, these two companies, the one that you've got the proposal from, I'm sure would be interested in the work that they're preparing an RFP for. But that doesn't commit the township to that company, and you'll find out soon enough if you proceed with an RFP, if they've stacked the decks so that they're the only one competent to do the work they spec. But I mean, that's down the road. I mean, I made note of that, but I don't see any inherent legal problem with at this point. But clearly, they do the work that they're going to prepare an RFP for.
Correct.
Well, they'll have an inside track of some sort, subject to your watchdog abilities.
Right.
Thank you.
I think the thing that
There's something there.
has been the biggest problem with all of the stuff when we do RFPs is that you need to try and get an estimate from somewhere, and you go and get that estimate, that individual's now tainted because they gave the estimate, and it's like you almost can't use them because they have knowledge above and beyond or could have, and it's the hardest part about doing this stuff.
And at the end of the day, it's hard to argue with $1,600.
Correct.
Well, exactly.
That's why I gave you the $18,000 one that just my head went, whoa, you know, I can't see where that comes from, so. All right, so anybody want to make a motion to? Oh, yes.
Richard Russell, 3560 Terra Drive, Bell. Rick, is there a 30-day response closure or 60 or by the end of the year for this company to get back to us?
Chief's got his hand up.
Yes, Chief.
They do have a schedule of what they're going to be offering in this process with multiple meetings. It'll be a matter of whatever's, how do we work out the meetings to get them out to the facilities, to evaluate the facilities first, do the research needed. I don't think there was a
Maybe it's too early.
deadline.
There is a statement
says 4
here.
weeks.
Yeah, that it says they expect it can be accomplished in 4 weeks.
Well, wow, thank you. That answers my question.
Wow.
So Dick, if you'd like to see a copy of this, it's available. It pretty much details, it does a good job of detailing it out. All right, so, do we do a motion?
I would move to approve Axiom Partners team to write an RFP for the overall fire department to not exceed $1,600.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Can vote, please?
Mr. Salvian?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
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 Mary's? Yeah, okay, I didn't hear that. Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, I'm going to move back to our presentations. to do the, these other items are gonna be fairly quick, I guess, but I would like to go ahead and get back to our presentation, so,
So somebody would move to remove that from the table.
I would move to remove the motion to move the presentation from the table.
Sewer feasibility study.
Feasibility study.
You know what it is?
Support. No, it was just the way you said it.
Move to move.
We had tabled the presentation earlier, and now we're coming back to it. So who supported it? Okay. All right, ready to vote?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald? Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay. Would you like to come forward and,
I apologize for being late. When I got here, I checked the first two doors. They were locked. I went around to the senior center. They told me it was at the high school.
sorry for that.
So you can ignore my my email to you, Rick.
Oh, no.
Like, where are you?
How was the high school doing? Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything about a board meeting
Sure.
out there, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to get this up and rolling for you here.
You're also gonna have to talk to your senior center staff.
Okay. Oh, I guess we got a movie. Come on. Okay.
My name is Greg Guswa with Johnson & Anderson. We've been talking with Rick and Tammy and Judy a little bit about sanitary sewer for the certain areas in the township. One of the reasons that we've been talking to them, we are the township engineer for White Lake Township, and White Lake Township may be one of the prime outlets for sewer, at least for part of the township's sewer district. And being able to work together and coordinate that probably is a very economical way to try to approach this. So the little presentation is kind of short and can answer questions, but we're basically here for a presentation on a proposal for the master plan update. The sewer district that was developed back in 2004 was about 7,300 acres. Proposed a wastewater plant north on Clyde Road on the levee site. There was about 7 pump stations. It was a combination of gravity sewer, pressure sewer layout. At that time, that was probably about your only option for treatment and disposal was up at that site. Things I think have changed since that point in time. So this is the district that was highlighted at the time of the report in 2004. One of the things that we're looking at, well, we'll go through is, one of the first steps I think is to, if you proceed ahead with the proposal and the feasibility study, is really to take a look at the district and see if that is the areas that you want to have served. This was done in 2004. There may be changes. You may want to add something. You may want to take something off of it. So the first thing would be to really sit down and redo the district. The second thing would be to go back and redo the REU counts to determine what flow existing and proposed or in the future that you would be generating from this district. Okay? What we've shown on here is basically about 5 options that we were looking at potentially. The first option is really going back to the original site, looking at the existing sewers that were proposed, and just repricing those so you have a benchmark of where you're at today compared to 2004. Okay? The second option is to use that same disposal site, but to convert the whole system to a pressure sewer system. And what that means is that down Milford Road, you'll see there's a series of pump stations. We have gravity sewer running one direction. You go to a pump station, you run a force main back the other direction. You got pipes, 2 pipes on a lot of the road sections there. Gravity systems typically go from the high point to the low point. This proposed disposal site is at the high point of your system, so everything has to get pumped back up to it. So option 1 would be to look at what was existingly proposed and just get the price to benchmark where you're at now. Option 2 would be to look at a pressure sewer system for the whole district going up to that site, and that layout would be different than what you see on there right now for that existing proposal. Option 3 would be to direct everything into White Lake Township. And the discussions with White Lake Township, they are more than willing to work with you as far as giving you an outlet for your sanitary sewer. They currently have sewer run up to Hill Road on 59. And we put a master plan together how to extend that on out to finish up that township. And it's a matter of looking at what flows you would possibly be generating that would go to it and what has to be done as far as other upgrades in White Lake Township and in Commerce Township. Option 4 that we want to look at is basically going down Milford Road and getting over into Commerce Township directly without going through White Lake Township to get to the Commerce treatment plant system. And the reason we want to look at that is that may actually be cheaper going that route than going through White Lake and through Commerce and paying for improvements in those two township systems in order to get your sewage to the treatment plant. And we're looking at going to the Commerce treatment plant and those options. Where is the Commerce treatment plant at?
Right, fire station. Which isn't by the hospital, behind the fire station.
No, it's down off of like Maple and out by M5.
Yeah,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
it's in the southern third of the township. So option 4 would be basically a pressure sewer system, probably going down, Milford Road and then cutting over in to a point someplace in Commerce Township where they have capacity to take that flow. Option 5 is a little different twist. It's looking at maybe splitting the district up and saying, okay, maybe the eastern portion, Duck Lake and 59 goes to White Lake Township. Maybe the Milford Road area south of 59 goes to Commerce or to Village of Milford. And maybe you look at going to the rest of the district up north to that other site. Or the different versions of that, you could be taking the East District to White Lake Township, and you could take the whole Milford Road district down to Commerce Township. Okay, so those are options that you want to look at and do the cost estimates on those so you can see which one is the most economical for you to put in. Also, that goes with that is doing some things as far as staging. What do you put in first? Because whatever you put in, you have to put in big enough to serve your whole district that you want to go to. So if you split one going to, say, White Lake and one going to Commerce, those mains are smaller than if you put one into White Lake or one into Commerce. Those costs come down for that particular main. So again, what we would look at doing is, revising the district, based on what township input is on those, what you want included, what you don't want included. Recalculating what we call REUs, which are your connections, what generates the flow. Figure out what your existing flow would be, what your future flow would be, and then sizing a system to accommodate that with these different options. Okay. This is just a little cartoon of kind of the difference between what we call a pressure sewer system and a gravity system. The bottom is a gravity system. This main is out in the street. It runs at a constant slope down to a pump station where it gets pumped out. The connection from the house is a gravity lead that goes out to that main. That's a gravity system. It works very well, but it's also more expensive initially to put in. Okay. The pressure sewer system, which is the top two things, you have your house over here, and if you look over here, here's your lead coming out of the house to your existing septic tank and field. What you would do is intercept that lead into a grinder station. There'd be a small diameter force main that goes out to a road. This is actually a pressure sewer, small diameter force main out in the road. This is another view of that. The house, the grinder station, the low pressure sewer in the main. This is what we call the infrastructure. This is the connection part. Now how a low pressure system works is each one of these pumps this sewage into that low pressure main, and that forces it down to the discharge point. You prevent any sewage coming back to your house by a check valve at the road and a check valve in the pump station. I guess we can flip to the next one. This is kind of a plan view of what a pressure system might look like, your grinder station on a site. Again, you have your house, your existing septic tank and drain field. You intercept your lead out of the house, you go to the grinder station, you run a small diameter force main out, you connect it to infrastructure in the road. Okay. This grinder station can be placed any place depending on where the outlet from the house comes. Typically, you have to have electrical service run over to that pump station. In most cases, That installation is by the owner, but it can be set up any way in the contract that you want to do it. Okay, the scope that we've kind of defined in there was, again, to redefine the districts, recalculate the REU, which determines what your flow rate is, what you're trying to discharge at, develop options for treatment and routing, develop the costs for each option, update the existing layout of the collection system and treatment, and meet with stakeholders and MDEQ to review the options. And the reason that we would want to meet with them, MDEQ, is ultimately they have to issue permits for this. We want to review this type of stuff with them to get them on board, so they say, yeah, we agree with the option that you want to go with before you go through a lot of expense of doing something. We prepare an updated master plan. We basically upgrade the district and demographics. The demographics are dealing with the population and land use and whatever changes have happened since 2004. Prepare exhibits showing the sewer layouts. Prepare the estimates of probable costs for each. Identify the intergovernmental government agreements that are required. Now, regardless of which way you go, unless you put your own treatment in there, you're going to have an agreement, say, with White Lake Township, a Commerce Township, or Commerce Township, or Village of Milford, or those intergovernmental agreements will have to be put in place. Identify financing methods that are potentially available. Then just prepare a conclusion and recommendations based on the information that we've gone through. Now, again, what we would do is we would sit down with you on a very regular basis and say, okay, this is what the layout looks like, this is what the cost looks like. Do we want to change anything? Do we want to adjust it? So the input of the township is going to be there at every step of the way. We're not going to do this in a vacuum and just come back and say, oh, here you are. Okay, we want the input back. We want to know what you feel about what's proposed. We want to look at the cost and, and present everything in that fashion. In addition to the construction costs, there are really two construction costs associated. One is the infrastructure. That's the main that's out in the road. The other cost is the connection to that main. And then you have an ongoing O&M cost that you pay for treatment and operation of the system. And what we try to do is at least give you a ballpark number for what those other costs would be, so that when you have a resident comes in and says, what is it going to cost me to connect here? You have an idea at least where that's headed towards. Okay, any questions?
I want to make a couple of comments so that the board understands how we got to this process in the first place. As everybody knows, I've been trying to look at how we can rejuvenate the sewer plan. I've watched all the difficulties we've had with people in their septics, and I've watched the health department and the MDEQ increase their stickiness and the requirements on things. And I've constantly been looking for that avenue where we could share some ways of making this happen. And I started out with Greg Baroni, the previous administrator, and got the conversation kind of going, but the new administration with Rick Colwell at one of our meetings that we have once a month with supervisors, we both got together and said, is there some way that if you guys are going to be moving towards the edge of our township line, is there some way we could maybe share this or be involved in it and move our stuff your way? And David Scott from Commerce was there. Prior to that, Tom Zoner had actually offered Highland Township 3 million gallons a day. So the knowledge is there that Commerce is involved and will be involved, but there's a lot of things that have to be discussed before you go there. And that's why the options and stuff make sense. So the question would be, we have engineers and we had an engineering plan that we had, why are we not using them? Well, my thought process was that when you already have the engineers that are going to be designing the hookup to their system and have been at it for a long time, it's a very well-known firm, why not share that component of it as well and take it to that component? It's not a statement about the engineers we have, and we're not looking to replace our engineers. We still have plenty of things that we use them for, so this is a different alternative. I think that just the fact that all the options came together in this time, I mean, it was actually the most astute thing that could have happened was canceling the other project, because we didn't know all this other stuff had happened. So by doing that, one of the things that does happen is Levy, who's going to have to put in a plant. Some of you already know about the relationship that we had with that plant. If we decide we want them to build it, we have to reinvest in it. So there's dollars that go back to that. The other part is that plant had open, what's it, right to that?
There probably were an area lagoon type system.
Lagoon
Open-
style,
An open lagoon or pond type system, so.
which you've seen in trailer parks and other places around, which is, now the thing that happened is 2004, that was designed. The MDEQ and the health department, they're looking at whole different ways of handling that stuff. And we don't know what new things you'd have to do. That'd probably be a total redesign on that part of the project in order to get authorization to do it, because there's been more than 10 years since that design, even though 2009 is when we canceled the project. So it's looking at how do you take and maximize the dollar to get the effluent out of town or out of the door. And this is an opportunity to put it where somebody has the newest facilities, has the capability to handle it, and removes the requirements for us to deal with it. We become secondary to it. So we're no longer looking at a DPW and looking at all the maintenance requirements and expenses of that plant. The plant that was designed was to be expanded in time. So the cost that was given before was for a plant that was 1/3 capacity. So that meant we would have to add on, and then what new requirements would be required. So it really can take a big bundle of money and put it at the effective components of it. And then some other things that for learning process, that when you talked about gravity versus pressure, the city of Pontiac right now, it's about 28% capacity. They're having to send our good friend John Dawson up here into those sewers to clean them because they don't have enough water flow. So what happens in a gravity system is they're designed to have a minimal amount of water flow that can float the effluent down to the next place to keep it clean verbiage here. So when you look forward to the future, we're constantly restricting water flow. So we're looking at toilets that may be 1 gallon instead of 1.6. We went from 6 gallons to 1.6. So if you can picture a canoe that has 6 gallons under it, it can cruise along for quite a distance. You take, a majority of that water away, that canoe's going to be scraping bottom, and when you take even more away, it's going to stop. And so for a rural style community that's going to have a lot less limited use or more limited use, you have to be really careful about water. How much is going to be in there? What are we going to have to do to make those things flow? So there's some inefficiencies in gravity. The beauty of gravity is there's no mechanics involved in it. There's no machinery. There's no electricity, except for lift stations. So those are the comparatives. But the other component is that gravity requires larger piping, requires the removal of roads. So you're going to have infrastructure changes that you have to add on top of that. The pressure sewer can be done through the majority of horizontal boring. So you're doing little to no damage to the external infrastructure. It has its ups and downs too. I mean, it occasionally has to be burped, and so there's things that have to be put into it to make it work. But since this was originally designed, there's been a lot of new changes in the pressure systems, the pump systems that are located at the houses are just light years ahead of what they used to be. So it's time to start looking at this again and find out a way that we can build a system that we can build onto. To give you an idea, we talked about the treatment center in Commerce being out by M5. That's where it's treated. But there are access points that are as close as Cooley Lake Road. The only thing we don't know is whether the volume is available at that point, but there might be need for infrastructure. So the distance is, Duck Lake, Cooley Lake Road, and you're basically within their system. So those are the things we have to look at to make that work. So Beth, you had
One
a
comment I would make is that if you can send your sewage to someplace else to have it treated, that is by far the most desirable option. You don't want to run a plant if you don't have to. And with a plant that was designed up there, it's going to be a groundwater discharge, there's all kinds of regulations and restrictions that go along with that type of facility. The hydrogeo study that you have to do, which is the direction that the groundwater goes, you have to do one of those, and then potentially the DEQ say, we're going to put a restriction on you drilling any wells and that influence downstream of that plant without our permit. So there's a whole lot of things that fall into that treatment. And every time you have to renew your permit on those things, which is every 3 to 5 years, they may tighten up the regulations and you may be stuck putting in a whole lot more treatment capacity, advanced treatment in order to meet those numbers. So if you can send it to someplace else, that is by far the best option.
Question, comment?
Grant Charlotte, 349 McPherson Street. I'm actually a certified installer for Oakland County for septic fields, and also, most of you know I've been doing development around the area and stuff like that, and it's getting to be tough to work with the county, especially since last November. They've restricted a lot of stuff on depth from groundwater to fields and stuff like that, and pretty much a lot of the properties now are just becoming not buildable for the most part, and so, I'm in full support of it for sure, and especially, like when we were talking about the levee location, White Lake, Commerce, Heartland, those areas weren't where they are now, So when we were going to build that plant, it made more sense because we might have been able to actually accept other people's, But now we're not in that position, so I guess I'm not an engineer or whatever, but to pump all that stuff way up there where everybody else already has sewer or whatever, and we don't have density up there either, our density is farther away from there, But I'd like to be involved in the process or whatever. That's why I came to this meeting, just because I saw it in the spinal column.
I think that the key thing to discuss is that, and this is, I'll use his name, Eugene Beach said, beware of what you ask for. So if you're going to put in a sewer, you're going to have to be thinking about what you're asking for. And we have this community that keeps saying over and over again, we want to maintain our rural environment. And Greg's very much aware of this. He wants to know how much are we willing to send their way. That means we have to plan for the future. And one of the things you have to be careful to plan for is not opening the valve all the way. In other words, don't have an open door for just about anything to come into the community. So it's going to take some realistic sitting down and figuring out how it might affect our land in the future and what's developable and what do we not want and how do we control those types of things. And it's the kind of thing that we have a real estate gentleman here who probably doesn't want to hear all of that, but do we want to open up the western part of our township to be taken over by subdivisions? Yeah, if you want to sell houses, but...
Well, you can plan for that, though, Rick, not
Right.
to interrupt you, but I would just mention that to Roscoe, is that's how surrounding communities have done it. If you have a strong master plan and have a vision for it, then you just have to stick by it, that's all.
Right.
And one other thing I'd like to add is I would, being involved with Heartland years ago, the biggest opposition they got to any of it was how much was it going to cost the user, to maintain it or to get behind it.
Yeah.
And that was by far the biggest, is what's it going to cost me as a homeowner? Who's paying for the grinder? And that kind of stuff can really stop the momentum if you don't have those kind of numbers too.
If a lot of homeowners, though, you're looking at 10 years ago, you're looking at a typical septic system costing you $7,000, $5,000. we're going in and replacing people's fields, $25,000, you know? So a lot of these people are thinking that and that's just for however long, that's not permanent, you know? So there's a lot of people out there that it was the cost, you know? And now the fields are getting to be expensive, you know? In some situations, you can't, you know, it can take a long time to deal with the county to even get a field replaced in someone's house.
Yeah, we
you
do
know?
a lot of that, so. But I think that I want the board to understand, I want the public to understand is that this isn't a case of trying to drive something down somebody's throat for the next level of revenue generation. This is because we have to think about the future of those generations that are gonna have to deal with this seriously later. You might be out on 20 acres of pure gravel and you could get by forever.
Lakeside Pines is having issues right now with
Yep.
their system, and they thought it was gonna last a lot longer up there, and they had whatever their field is, or I think it's a community field, I think is what it is, if I understand it. And
Look at like Highland House.
yeah.
You know, they're going through they're still all mixed up in that, trying to just put a septic field back. And luckily he owns property next to it, or it wouldn't be happening.
Right.
This happens, he doesn't have that property, he no longer has a restaurant, you know? Because they just won't let him put it back, period.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
just about business, it's about the population as a whole. And we have a huge lakefront population with little dinky lots that absolutely can no longer support this stuff. And our population that's moving in, as evidenced by our building permits and stuff, are saying, we want to add on to our house. And we want to puff our house up on the lake, and we want to do all this stuff. And where are you going to put your septic field?
Well, even
And so we're doing zoning variances to help people to be able to, increase their investment. And so the object is not to give a free willy to building mansions on postage stamp lots. It's to make sure that we have the right tools to be able to keep that water clean. And my other goal is to maintain wells so that the people have control of their own water, not tying it into a master system. Now, that is one thing I do want to bring up. Levy, I believe there's at least 2 wells. I think there were 3 wells that were drilled that it was determined are probably the cleanest water in Oakland County. And they're capped now. So this is a perfect opportunity to, if we work with Levy, who's going to be mined out by 2025 and probably want to be doing development, that we may be able to partner with them as well to take some of their resources and set it up so that we can share some of this cost. And they could bring their water down to our system and eliminate these wells we have. So there's a lot of really interesting positives to that have some cost to them. But it's looking at all the parameters together and starting with where are we going to make it go? Where's the home plate? And I think the home plate should not be north. It should be where we have treatment facilities that are more modern and can handle it. And to work with other communities at the same time.
You can identify the project as the final flush.
The final flush. There we go. Yes, Richard.
Dick Russell, 3560 Turner Drive. I'm curious, in the overview that's being prepared, does that reach 30 years or 50 years as a standard study method?
The typical study goes 20 years into the future. And what we do is we rely a lot on SEMCOG data for population projections. They'll tell us, what your population is right now, what your average household, number is, how many people per household, whatever. And we use that information and we use their projections going on out to the next 20 years.
So some of those projections from SimCog would be that the baby boomers and the older generation are going to be gone, and that you got millennials moving into cluster housing or condos, and that's in the growth of the 20-year plan for demographics, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now, right now, your original plan was based on 2.8 people per house. Okay, so that generates 280 gallons per day per house or per REU, residential equipment unit. In White Lake Township, we've got the DEQ to accept 271 gallons per day because the population listed out there was like 2.6 and going down. They're not gonna go any lower than that. For their planning purposes, the DEQ would prefer to see 3 per household, or 300 gallons per household. But you have the documentation that's necessary that you can say, okay, it's reasonable to go with the 280, and that's probably what we would use for that, other than looking at the SEMCOG data and see if there's something that's drastically changing.
Beth, did you have something to say?
My only thing that I want to say is we just passed purchasing policy that said for a big project like this, you're going to look at multiple bids. And I don't understand why we didn't ask our own in-house and, you know, our established relationship engineer to quote a similar scope. And maybe even a third. I mean, no offense to Johnson and Anderson, just because they're working for White Lake doesn't mean they necessarily got the best answer either. I think you should look and see what, you know, HRC can offer along the same line.
I think.
I mean, critiques of a 15-year-old plan, yeah, the HRC would probably have the same critiques. The scope of the area probably hasn't changed, and the REU counts really haven't changed. I mean, I've worked pretty closely on coming up with the original REU estimate, and I know what's changed in the master plan, I know what development's happened. That part I'm pretty confident we don't have to spend a lot of time looking at, refreshing cost estimates and maybe looking at the change in the emphasis of whether we want to do pumps or gravity. You know, that anybody, any engineer, competent engineer can do that.
My point of view on it is I think we need a fresh view. And I'm going to be blunt and say that I looked extremely close at that project that was proposed in the past, and it was a mistake to go with a gravity feed. It's a personal opinion, but we don't have a community that can support the water flow that that system would need. And to have 7 pump stations that cost $500,000 a piece was foolish. It should have never been proposed that way in the first place. And to go back and say, hey, now let's replicate what you know you're asking for now. Yeah, we'll tell you what it's going to cost. Anybody can do that. My point of view is we have a community that we want to work with, who has an engineering firm that's already working on. Let's just extend it forward. In this case, yes, it bypasses the board policy to put things out to bid. It's a request that it's made, but the board has that right to make that. And I don't disagree 100% with you, but I'm not happy with what was produced in the previous, from the previous firm. I think they're a firm that is perfect for large cities. That's what their design characteristics are, which they prefer to do. And I think that ours was one that they probably just pulled some stuff from previous projects and put the pieces together. If you go back to this map, I don't know if anybody can see it, but if you look at the red lines on that map, and you look at that X box up at the top left, the far red lines there are gravity sewers. So the water flow goes from north to south to east or to west to get pumped back north again to go over to that treatment facility. I'm sorry, but that's asinine.
Well, at the time, commerce wasn't an option. I mean, we did have those discussions.
It could have been pressure feed, and it could have gone north and then west, and then cut all of that out. And the other thing is that the infrastructure, of course, was anticipated that it would have water that would go through with it. You go through and you rip the crap out of all the roads that we have. God bless it, we get some new surfaces, but you're going to do infrastructure damage that costs so much extra money that it's not necessary. So take that out of it. Put in a system that is more proven today than it was in the past. I'll agree with that. And flow the water in the direction you want it to go, not what you have to let it do when you do gravity feed. It's just huge infrastructure damage when you do gravity feed, and there's no need for it. And I think that that's my disappointment in Hubble, Roth, and Clark. I've asked a couple of times if they'd be interested in being involved in this, and the first thing they said was, go talk to your engineer in-house. She knows what to do. Well, I didn't feel that that was the right thing to say. If they wanted to talk to somebody, they should have talked directly with me to figure out where I was heading. So there's the answer to your point of view and why I feel that this is the right direction to head and that we should, my recommendation is to go this way. It's $27,000 that is, I believe, would be well spent. It's not a commitment to the final engineering of any sort. It may turn out that we do this and they come back with the data and we look at it and go, I don't know that. But in my past experience over many years of working with engineering firms, I'm very familiar with Hubbell-Roth and Clark. I'm very familiar with Johnson and Anderson. I know the communities that they've worked with, and I've talked to those communities, and I have faith that this would be a good choice, and I think the money would be well spent to carry it forward in that direction. So that's my response to that, and it's, you know, with respect. But I also don't feel that we need to change our engineering firm at this point, just at the same time. I think it's good to have a couple of options. So,
Rick, on that note, that's, I think, what I'd like to see is another option. I'd like to see a quote from HRC. You know, they are our in-house engineers. Previous boards voted to have them be the township engineer. I don't understand why you wouldn't at least get a price from them. You know, that doesn't mean you have to take it either, but that design was done that way because that's what they had to work with. Levy was required to build a plant. The flow had to come from the lower part of the township up to the higher part of the township. There wasn't any choice in that, you know, so it's not really fair to be done on them because that's the kind of system they designed, because that was their choice. In fact, at the time, we looked for property at the south end of the township so we wouldn't have to do that, and it didn't work out. So it's not really fair to HRC to say, well, you know, you designed this and I don't like it, so we're not going to get a quote from you. You know, I'd like to see
what are you going to get a
our
quote on?
engineer and get a quote from them for this project.
I think that what you're asking is to spend $27,700 and $27,700. I think that's ludicrous. What we're getting here is recommendations. We're not getting a final answer to anything. And what they're doing is they're actually going to do a comparative to say, this is how a gravity system would potentially compare at the same time frame to a pressure system.
And HRC can do that too.
Yeah, and they can, but I'm asking that we go with a different engineering firm.
I don't think that's a real smart plan for the township. You know, you're not using your resources that you have available and the history that they have with the township, and the design work that they did on that, they won't have to repeat. And I'm not in favor of going with the firm without either putting it out for bid or at least getting a price from our in-house engineers.
Well, let me ask you a question. The presentation is good. This 27,000 is for them to put together a proposal of what we should do.
What we could do, recommendations.
Okay. And you're asking for our existing forum to come in and make a proposal about what we should do.
Well, at least get a price from them on
Proposal to refresh the 2004 plan.
Right.
I'm adamantly opposed to that because I'll go back to, they had the opportunity to do a system that would truly work, and they put a proposal together for a system that would likely fail. And the reason I say that is 7 pump stations require 7 generator sets, 7 pump sets. They require constant maintenance. They require water volume. You have to have water volume in order to make sure that you have the flow rates in a gravity system.
But at
They
the time,
failed
that's what
to
they were
give.
asked to do.
They failed. No, they weren't asked to do that. They were asked to give us a sewer system, and that's what they gave us. They gave us a gravity feed system, and it's woefully inadequate and inappropriate for Highland Township.
I don't know that you're gonna get back a proposal that doesn't include pump stations. Are you gonna be mad if Johnson and Anderson proposes some pump stations?
There will be pump stations, but they're of a different style. You got a different level, a whole different level to those pump stations.
No, those little teeny pump stations still end up somewhere and re-pumped. So you could still end up with pump stations, so don't get hung up on
You
pump
could end up
stations.
with one or two main pump stations in order, but those pump stations would be necessary if you wanted to downsize sewers and a discharge into it. You know, if you want to size sewers up, you can do it all without the main pump station. So it's a cost comparison between, is it cheaper to put in an 8-inch force main in a pump station, or is it cheaper to run the 12-inch 2 or 3 miles versus that? So that's the type of comparison that needs to be done to determine, you know, which is the best system.
When HRC put that together, did they put together options like this, or did they just say this is what you get?
They didn't
Or
have
does
that.
anybody remember?
They
Well,
didn't have these
HRC had like 4 or 5 options. They evaluated about how we would get, where would the ultimate disposal site be. Heartland was an option at the time. We talked to Commerce and it just wasn't gonna work. There was a levy site and we looked at a site of our own on the south end. And they looked at different combinations of gravity and grinder pump stations. But
Did they
this
put it-
was more or less the direction of the board that, you know, they want a more conventional system. That doesn't mean you get the same ideas out of them today that you got out of them 15 years
Well,
ago.
HRC wasn't our reviewing engineer at that time either, right?
Yeah, they were. But they didn't have a lot of years' experience with us yet. They were just newly our engineers at the point.
Because I think that's the thing, you gotta get options, you know, not just,
Why was the reason we didn't look for another engineering firm to give us a quote on that also?
right?
At that time?
Yeah.
At that time, we just vetted them. We'd just gone through a big vetting process. And we were satisfied with, you know, what they had to offer.
Okay, so I guess if this firm puts something on the table and we're satisfied, what's the difference? Why do we need to go to another quote, even if it's our existing engineer?
It's just sort of the, you know, you have
Okay.
invested in a relationship with another firm, and you're saying you're satisfied with them in general. Part of it's courtesy, to give them the professional courtesy to allow them to
Just ask
continue
the
to be your primary engineer. The other part is, you know,
Have
you
they
can't
have
beat
they-
them up for a plan that
have
they wrote 15
come forward
years
at
ago.
all to ask or investigate as to what we want to do, with any thoughts or ideas since this is all transpired? Has any of their
Rick said he
representatives?
had a conversation with them. I wasn't privy to it.
They said ask our in-house.
Oh, yeah, I'm asking the question. I mean, is our current engineer, have they sent their marketing person out at all once in a while saying, how you guys doing? Is there any
They're
things?
here all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
They're in and out.
Okay, well, I don't know that. I'm not here all the time. I'm
Yeah,
asking
they
a
are
question.
here all the time.
Has the question ever been broached? Never with me. Beyond the initial stuff that, when we talked about what can we do and how can we move
The
forward.
question I'm asking, I guess, in the process of them coming in here all the time, have they ever said, we'd like to give you another proposal to do something?
Well, they're in and they're asking what's going on and what are your needs. If we aren't telling them that we want to go after sewers at this point,
So what
then
did
why
they-
would they think that
So
the
what did they
proposal
say
sewer
when you told
update?
them that? What did they say when you told them we want to go after sewers?
I don't know I don't know what the conversation was.
Well,
They've never done that.
I'm just asking a basic fundamental question. If I was a current engineer and I'm looking at a problem that exists in this township, which is sewers, why wouldn't I be aggressively trying to come in here and sell you Plan B or Plan C or Plan D?
Who's gonna review their drawings if they draw?
Well, whatever, I'm
drawings?
just saying, but they're not, they haven't.
They're our reviewing engineer, right?
Follow what I'm saying?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just focusing on the issue that's been brought up here in terms of whether there's any obligation to ask HRC. The revised purchasing policy you just passed has exemptions from it. The very last one reads, professional services from firms that have been previously vetted and approved by the board. I have not heard that the board has previously used Johnson and Anderson for any work. Is that correct? That anyone remembers or knows? So, in my opinion, based on that revised policy, to approve the proposal before you tonight, the board should waive what I just read That would allow you then to consider the proposal. If that purchasing policy provision is not waived, then I think you would be obligated to get proposals that are otherwise called for.
Right, and I would be asking to waive the policy.
So that would be an appropriate motion to move the discussion along to see if you're going to waive it or not. If you're not going to waive it, then I guess you know what you need to do. And I thank Greg for coming. And
All right, then,
We've been working on this policy all this time. We just proved it, and now we approved it, and the very next action we're gonna take is that we're gonna waive that? It seems
the
kind of-
prior policy, before a few minutes ago, said professional services purchased by the Township Board after a series of interviews with prospective professionals has occurred. So, under that version, since I think, if I heard correctly, there's probably more than one discussion with Johnson and Anderson, under that provision, you would be fine. But right now, you've got a new purchasing policy in effect.
I have a question. What
None of which I knew before I came here tonight, or I would have pointed it out to you.
What kind of relationship does the Hubble have with Commerce and White Lake?
How would any of them know?
Well, I don't know. I'm asking a question. I mean, you know, we want to, if we're going to invite our existing engineer to come in and give us some kind of proposal to what's it going to cost to do a new system, I would be concerned as to what kind of relationship they have with Commerce and White Lake.
Well, you know that they're not the sitting engineers for White Lake, because that's Johnson and Anderson.
Yeah.
Well, so,
I don't.
So there's a
HRC
value. There's a value then in looking at it from this.
HRC represents a lot of municipalities, and they do it as the general engineer and special project engineer, just like Johnson and Anderson is standing here as a possible special project engineer for this limited purpose for Highland Township.
right. My proposal is that we don't have a contract with HRC. They're just our assumed engineers. We've agreed to use them. It's like our attorneys. We don't have a contract with you, but we choose to use you. So
And we're happy for that.
At this point, we choose to use you.
We're happy with that.
Sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to say. No, so my point is that this is an opportunity to go ahead and hire, to have another engineering firm, put out some proposals, and see where it goes. It's a more likely move forward to see something happen here in our community, to take this step when we already know that we have the engineers that know what they're going to do to tie us in if we need to be tied in. It's just a natural process or progression. I'm not going to say HRC is any better than Johnson and Anderson at doing these things, because there's no specific proof in that. But I can only say that my reasoning for not jumping up and down and going to Hubble, Roth and Clark is that I feel they did us a major disservice in the design of that system. And we paid a boatload of money for it. And it's disgusting that we would look at that and even consider that would be something we do. It flabbergasts me. And I know that a lot of people go, well, what does Rick know about this stuff? I know a lot about this.
I think the hard part is the rest of us don't. And I respect what you know, but it's very hard for the rest of us to just take one opinion and move forward.
I would ask, so vetting is kind of a not very well defined word. Could we vet the Johnson and Anderson firm tonight? Is that something we could do?
What's vetting?
Right.
Yes.
I'm not sure about all the things you're saying about HRC, because we've had them all these years, and like Judy said, you know things we don't, then I don't understand those. I think there is merit to the Johnson firm because of the fact that they've already working with that. I agree with that 100%. I think that we just need to resolve the part about maybe adding them as one of our engineers, I don't know, that needs to be resolved, because we just have established a policy about it.
I guess I don't want anyone to think I've got the foregone conclusion HRC is the right person for the job. I don't. I'm just saying,
But you're
you've
just-
invested in this relationship and then you just basically didn't even tell them there was a door open and you just go with someone else. It just, I spent a lot of years as a consulting engineer and I think we owe them the courtesy of asking them how they would approach the project. You don't have to tell them what the budget is from J&A. Just ask them for a letter proposal to refresh the. That way, if you go with Johnson and Anderson, they can't say they weren't asked.
Right, but it's public record now.
I was gonna say, but yeah, here, they have access to it now, so
Right.
how fair is that?
Yes, Gary?
In response to Tammy's question, previously is a reference to what have you done before you awarded the contract. There's nothing that would stop you from asking Greg about Johnson and Anderson and its qualifications to do this type of work. There's nothing that suggests how thorough or brief those questions have to be. So you could do that, and you wouldn't have to waive the policy. So you could satisfy yourself as to whether you're comfortable with Johnson and Anderson's qualifications to do the work they've given you a proposal for. Someone could then make a motion to approve Johnson and Anderson as eligible for a professional services contract under the exemption in the revised purchasing policy. You could then turn your attention to the proposal itself.
All right. Question, Greg? This isn't part of that yet. What I see your proposal as is highly conceptual. It has some proposal value, in other words, through knowledge of length of pipe and number of RUs and all these things, there's some very basic calculations that occur that can give us some possible cost to do these options. That isn't necessarily saying that you're going to be the final engineer, correct?
That's your choice.
And so what that leaves the door open for is that HRC could have an opportunity to bid the proposal against another engineering firm. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. You smack me if I'm wrong, but so it's not saying that they can't deal with it if there are engineers. But the other thing it does say is that why would we pay twice, potentially twice for something, when we have a proposal on the table that doesn't meet the purchasing policy, which after we got done with conversations was pretty clear that it didn't. I mean, I'm not going forward knowing that any of that. I mean, I knew that from the get-go. But the way that this process started was a long conversation over a number of, actually almost a year, of what is White Lake doing, what can Highland do. I talked with Heartland, can we connect to Heartland? Heartland said no because they don't have the volume. It is a process that's been going on for a long time, and we've engaged some people who have, at no cost, up to this point, given a huge amount of information and open doors that we didn't have open before. And that's my point of view on it, is, you talk about respect for the other engineers. Having been in business before, respect is one thing, but there's more often than not you get dumped for somebody else. And you just have to pick your pieces up and move on. And I'm not saying that that's what we're doing with Helmut Roth and Clark, because we still have uses for them that we have engaged in them. They're still working for us. But in this scenario, I'd like to see an alternative to that because of that. And that's where I'm at with it, and that's why I chose to continue to have conversations with Johnson & Anderson, because it made sense to me that you work with an engineer that's already tied to a project and not have to bring in another whole bag of luggage to try and figure out how to pay for all of it. I just, that's where I'm at. And so I have one more question, Meg, I will let you.
So are we paying for the proposal on this? For them to actually make a proposal for us?
Oh, yeah, because there's a lot of calculations involved in it.
No.
We're talking about, we prepared a proposal to do a feasibility study. There was no cost for the proposal. We've got no charges sending to the township up to date. There's been no billing or anything done. The proposal was prepared at our cost.
So that's where these 5 options came from, basically, that toss up in the air what the choices are.
In order to put a proposal together, you have to have some type of scope to work with. Okay. So we took a look at what was there, what the options, what the possibilities were. We put a proposal together based on 5 options to look at least. And that's how we come up with the number that we've got in the proposal.
So all the time they've spent thus far is gratis
Right.
in gaining information, to find out what path should be taken, and based on that, they made a presentation. And this cost that would be forthcoming would be if they implement the presentation, there's a fee behind it.
Right, which gives us fairly general information on multiple options that we would then be able to move forward and say what direction would be smart to move. That's a whole other set of questions, a whole other set of avenues to take. And then, you know, that means talking to Milford, talking to Commerce and on a broader scale, which I've already done. But now you got to get down to the realities of it. What are you going to stick with us with? That's what they're going to want to know. And one of the comments about if we go through White Lake, there's infrastructure improvements that they have to make to take the added volume. That's a cost that somebody has to bear. White Lake will bear part of it, Highland would have to bear because we're causing that. So these are things that are going to be not in a detail that would be specific enough other than to get that, what's it going to cost if we did this? And it's an estimate. It's that one number that everybody hears and then they scream about it later, you know. But
What's the timeline on if we said go today, when would this proposal
How long does
be?
it take?
This particular type of analysis would probably be 2 to 3 months to finish up. You know, it could be done quicker, but you know, you have to schedule your time to look at stuff and you know, get data back from the SEMCOG and you know, make the contacts with Commerce Township, with Milford, and all those people. You know,
So
those take time just to get the meeting set up. They don't happen overnight.
So at the end of 3 months approximately, there would be then a proposal saying this is how much it could cost.
it would be a proposal that says, here's 5 options.
It would be actually a study.
Yes.
Okay. It would be a study that says, okay, option 1 would cost this much. Option 2 would cost this much. Option 3 would cost this much. Option 4 would be this much. Option 5 would be this much. That way you could take a look at those capital costs. But in addition to that, I would want to add into there what it would cost for the individual to connect and at least some ballpark number of what it's going to cost to send your sewage someplace else. What's your monthly or quarterly charge going to be?
For the end user.
Because you know, ultimately, the question you're going to be asked is, how much is it going to cost me? If you tell them just to put the infrastructure in, it's going to cost you this much, and you don't tell them that it's going to cost this much more to connect, there's a big shock that comes down the road.
And that's for each of the options you have.
Correct.
What questions would people want answered in order to approve Johnson & Anderson as an approved, vetted professional service
How long have you guys
provider?
been in business? When did you guys start?
I think this is our 70th anniversary this year.
70th?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And
A
what
couple
other-
years.
Pardon? Yeah.
What other municipalities?
We are obviously the engineers for White Lake Township, we're the engineers for Waterford Township, City of Rochester, West Bloomfield Township. We do some work in Independence. We do a lot of work for the Oakland County Drain Commission, or WRC, I guess is the term. We're the township engineers for Port Huron Township, Muskegon Township, Lakeland Township on the west side. We are currently working in the city of Flint, in the city of Pontiac, and I'm trying to think of any other bigger ones that we've got going. We have 4 offices. Our main office is in Waterford. We have an office in Muskegon. We have a small satellite office in Port Huron Township, and we have a small office up in Flint, or actually Flint Township.
How many professional engineers do you have in your firm? 10, 20, 50, 1,000?
Between 15 and 20 registered. I can't tell you. I'd have to try to sit there and count them.
Trying to get a feel for how big the firm is, employee-wise.
We're not the size of an HRC. We're not the size of an OHM. But we have some very quality people that we have. Most of our people have been with us. Probably the average is 15 to 20 years with the firm. So we don't have big turnover people that work with us.
You didn't know you were gonna get grilled, did you? Jeez.
It's just practice for tomorrow.
So what sewer systems have you done?
We've done work on White Lake Township, obviously, a lot of expansion there. We took over from Spalding and Decker as their sanitary engineer. Waterford Township, West Bloomfield Township. We've done some in the city of Rochester. A lot of that stuff has been rehab work, where we go in there and do I&I analysis and do repair work. Sanitary sewer in Port Huron Township. We've done several large projects over on the west side, Muskegon Township, Lakeland Township. There's another one there I can't remember. I should recall them, but some of the projects over on the west side were multi-million-dollar projects. There were $20, $30 million sewer projects over there several years back. My background. I've been in the business 42 years, registered for 38. My specialty is pump stations, water treatment, wastewater treatment, sanitary sewers, storm sewers. I've also done road work, bridge design, site improvement stuff. But, the last several years I've specialized a lot in sanitary pump stations, water treatment.
Any other questions? Yes, sir?
Has J&A done prior sewer feasibility studies?
Yes.
For which communities?
Yes. We just completed the master plan update for White Lake Township, which basically showed how to provide the sewer for the rest of the districts that are in the sanitary sewer district.
Do any of the communities you represent have pressure sewer systems?
Yes.
Which ones?
White Lake Township, Waterford has very little bit. West Bloomfield Township has very little. The west side has a couple of sections that have some pretty significant pressure sewer systems in there.
James?
When you do the sanitary sewers, do you also tie in the storm drains into those, or?
Pardon?
When you do the sanitary sewers, do you also tie the storm drains into those as well?
Storm sewers cannot tie into sanitary by state law. They have to be kept separate.
That was the right
We
answer.
don't have the public.
I should ask, how many projects have you done where you separated the sanitary sewers from the storm sewers?
That's a better question. Yeah, that's probably the biggest one there.
What do you think, what is the biggest, you've been in for a long time, from 20, 30 years ago till now, what's the biggest difference that you see dealing like with DEQ and things like, what's the big changes you've seen over the last so many years? What's made your job more difficult, let's say?
The DEQ has some really good people, but they also have some very inexperienced people. So when you send plans in there, you sometimes have to spend a lot of time explaining how the system works. As far as changes, the regulations have got much stricter over the time. 20 years ago, almost everything was a gravity sewer system. The pressure sewer systems you see now would not have been allowed back then by the DEQ. They didn't understand how you could put pumps together and multiple pumps, multiple lines going into bigger mains and whatever. They wouldn't permit that before. That's only come through in the last 10 or 15 years that they've allowed that. The large force main or pressure sewer that we put in White Lake Township down Bogey Lake Road, which serves the school over there, we had probably 3 meetings down at the DEQ with computers going through, showing the hydraulics, the pressures and everything in order to get that approved.
We're on, I teach at Lakeland High School. We're on that
Yeah.
now? Actually,
Lakeland High
you
School
did?
is-
I wasn't sure I know.
So, and part of what's happened, particularly the last couple of years, the situation at Flint with the water, and this water has really snowballed back to the DEQ, and I mean, they're dotting every I, crossing every T, going down their checklist, making sure that everything is checked off, whatever. It's getting tougher to get stuff through, only because they're trying to protect themselves.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What if scenario, okay, let's assume we have approved this. At the end of 3 months, there's gonna be a presentation of the cost. At that point, would we be going out for competitive bid?
No, because you still have to have the design process.
Yeah.
This is concept, with a cost factor to it.
So could we invite Humboldt to come in with a design concept?
Really, the next step of the process, once you've got your master plan in place, is trying to figure out who's ready for sewer now.
So there's a.
There may not be a design process for years, just try and garner support to go now.
Part of that was financing options, right, too, figuring out how it can be paid for also, right? Part of that proposal.
And serious impact for, I think, the individual citizen to connect. I mean, the big difference is you want to sell sewers to the community and grow in the next 20 years. Is the connection fee $50,000 to connect because I'm on the lake, or is it 10? Can I mitigate that over 10 years or 20 years so it's not going to kill me on my monthly payment? Or do I got to sell a house and the kids can't live on the lake because the grandkids won't come anymore because I can't afford to live here? That's really where you're trying to go to. And you want some educated people that are familiar with what your opportunities are to give you good ideas, because you got to think 20 years from now when most of us won't be here.
That's correct. Gary?
Well, I mean, I've done this a long time, I've seen the proposals come in. You're gonna get a feasibility study from someone if you approve getting one from someone. The next step's gonna be for the township to decide if it likes any of the options to the point where it wants to pursue one or more of those. You're not gonna be able to do anything more until you then decide, when do we wanna do it, Beth's comment. And then you're gonna have to hire an engineering firm to develop the actual documents that a contractor could look at and say, that's gonna cost you this much. I mean, so there's a multi-steps here. This is a fledgling stage of the proceeding.
So
You
that-
probably spend just as much time with someone like him trying to get an SAD together to figure out who's in and who's
So
out.
at that point, Humboldt could be part of that process anyway, right?
Or it could be somebody else too altogether.
Okay,
Doesn't
so
have to be anyone
going back to the
particular.
point of the original debate is that, we were worrying about having Humboldt be part of this initial process. They would stand to gain business if we chose to invite them into bid on the project somewhere downrange,
Yeah.
right? So they're not out a minute.
Correct. So, process that we started here is, we just did a lot of conversation, and Greg stood there under fire, and we've, in essence, done a public vetting of an engineering firm So the next step would be to,
Somebody, if they're so inclined, could make a motion to approve Johnson and Anderson as eligible for a professional services contract under the purchasing policy.
I'm going to concern a question. How much is this approximately?
$27,700.
And how much did we spend on the old system that never happened?
A lot of money.
900,000.
Any idea?
Well,
Well,
that's not apples and apples.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
I mean,
that-
there was a 2004 study. I
Okay,
think
but
it was
we spent a lot of
20,000
money-
and 2004.
We spent a lot of money on the other side. 27,000 is not a lot in relationship to what we invested before. Okay, I'm just trying to, in my mind, figure out, the concern. Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I guess what I'll do is I'll make the motion that, help me out in there, Gary.
To approve Johnson and Anderson as eligible for a professional services contract under the revised purchasing policy.
That's the motion.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now you can consider the proposal that's been presented to you.
Okay, so I guess I started this mess. I'll keep the mess rolling. Would somebody like to make a motion besides myself? Or?
The intent of this entire operation is to aggressively move forward, get sewers and water. And we're not doing this just for the extra.
Sewers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Sewers, I'm sorry. Okay. I want to make sure that we go all out to make this happen somehow, whether it's in our time or somebody's.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the Highland Township contract with Johnson and Anderson engineering firm to develop a feasibility study to connect the White Lake Township sanitary sewer for the amount of $27,700 and authorize supervisor to sign the proposed agreement. So we need-
And do we want to attach the budget amendment along with?
Should we, the budget amendment should be a separate thing.
Separate.
Okay. All right.
Somebody want a second?
Support?
Okay, moved and supported.
All right. Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. Now we need a budget amendment.
Okay, so if you look at the budget amendment that is attached in there, what we had is I had set aside in the original budget $15,000 for professional services, and the intent was to be used for exactly what we're doing now in terms of researching sewers. It's 15,000 short, so we're proposing to amend the budget by $15,000. So the proposed new budget would be $30,000.
I would move to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Support?
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Wow, Greg, I bet
Thank
you didn't
you.
expect.
Thank you very much.
Grace
for your
under
patience.
fire. Yeah, and for that mix-up, I'm so sorry about
I
that.
apologize for being late.
You got a view of the township, though.
I did.
So-
And now you know where to find them next time.
Yeah.
Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Through full moon day.
Okay, so now we're gonna get back in order here. Chief, you wanna talk about your ordinance clarification?
Sure. Currently, the way the system works is somebody applies for the fire department, they put their application in, we do an interview panel recommends or doesn't recommend their hiring. They go through a background check, driving check, physical testing, pre-appointment physical. All this stuff takes time. I gotta send part of it to the sheriff's for a background check. I gotta send part of it to the Secretary of State for driving record. Driving record could be back within 5 to 7 days, could be 2 to 3 weeks, could be 6 weeks. Once I get all this information back, then it comes back to me, and I gotta send a request to you guys to approve hiring this person. The way the ordinance is written right now, it talks about appointing positions from your position of firefighter all the way up to fire chief. When I hire them fresh off the street, we're hiring them as a probationary firefighter. They're not being appointed or sworn in at this point. All that's being done is they're starting the process to learn how to do the job and to become qualified to be appointed to a firefighter position. I guess I'm looking for a little clarification on your end to streamline the process. When I make a recommendation such as the two for tonight, it's pretty much just a rubber stamp, okay, approved, they've already passed all the stuff. With the process being anywhere from 10 to 6 weeks, and potentially an additional 2 to 4 weeks until I can get it on the board agenda, I'd like the opportunity to at least get them on board as a probationary firefighter, and then send a letter to you letting you know that they've been hired, or I don't want to say appointed because appointed is the word in the ordinance. I just want to hire them, get them through the process, you'll get notification if they're being hired, and then once they've met our criteria, the state's criteria under the Firefighters Training Council and also the Emergency Medical Technician under Laura, then we'll make the recommendation to you guys to appoint them to a firefighter position.
Fair enough.
Yeah, whatever the expedient.
So part of the problem is, and maybe I missed the beginning of it, but it's the delays, maybe in the monthly meetings and stuff. It's a problem at time for you too, because even they had delay.
It is, yeah, it's not just the delays on the meetings.
No, but that's part of it though.
But
too.
that is part of
Okay.
it. It could extend it at anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Are they paid at that point?
They are paid, but they're paid at a nominal rate.
Okay, so it makes it difficult. You can't, in other words, you can get them all set up, but they can't do anything. And they can't really even learn what they need to learn because you can't really pay them by ordinance.
Correct. For example, the two that are on the agenda tonight, I could have started them at the beginning of the month. But I can't start them until we get to the board meeting for approval of a probationary employee. It's not even in the ordinance.
Why can't you ask, like when you know it's going to be a month ahead, ask that previous month, conditioned on them meeting whatever requirements are necessary?
And we have done that in the past, but again, it could be the next month or the following month, or depending on how long it takes to get the responses back from the county or
Well,
the
that's what I'm
Secretary of
saying.
State.
When you know this is the guy you want, and you know he's going to complete it in the next month or 2 months, do it as soon as you can to the board, conditioned on him completing whatever is left to complete. I don't understand what you're asking for in the language change.
I'm not asking for a language change, I'm asking for clarification. The way the language says in the ordinance is for a firefighter position all the way to fire chief that they get appointed,
Yeah.
which involves board approval.
Right.
My interpretation, right, the way I'm kind of construing it, is a probationary firefighter has no authority under Public Act 207, which gives a firefighter or a fire chief their authority for inspection to perform any task of a firefighter until they meet a certain criteria or a certain level of training and education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they become appointed or sworn in as a firefighter. So I'm just looking at, as a probationary, I don't want to change the ordinance. I don't want to go through make you guys go through the process of having to change the ordinance. It's just a matter of interpretation. Is this person a...
What's that?
Can I ask just a couple questions?
Sure.
So, there's a section of the ordinance that says firefighters serve at least 6 months probationary period. You're not asking to change that, right?
No.
And that probationary period starts when they're appointed by the township board?
Yes.
So I see the issue then, and I would express the opinion that as far as 9118B of the ordinance, which says that the chief shall recommend, subject to board approval, the appointment of a firefighter, other position as well, that in the scenario presented, if the chief identifies firefighters that are going to make it, or he thinks are going to make it, he bring that to the board at its first available agenda, ask for approval of the appointment, and the board could make that approval subject to and conditioned on the things that are still to happen. And that would solve it without the need for an ordinance amendment, I think.
Kind of, but in a streamlined system, for example, Secretary of State, we do online now. It says that it could take up to 8 weeks. We've been very fortunate over the last couple people we've put in for. We got it back in about 6 days. So I could have gotten an application, or the interview panel could have had the interviews of new hires after the last meeting or the night of the last meeting. I get the approval for it, they go for the background check through the county. I get the Secretary of State approval for their driving record. They get their physical results back. They get their all the criteria that are needed to be met by the employee. I get that done before the first of the month. I still have to wait an additional 2 weeks to put them on the books. And then,
unless you've done it at the prior board meeting in anticipation of those folks meeting the criteria.
I don't see interviewees until they go through the interview panel. I don't know who's applying for the job until after they've gone through the interview.
And if we approve them conditionally, before their background check comes back, we could be on the record as having approved someone who's got a horrible background, that we, or a terrible driving record, and of course we're saying conditionally, but I don't know,
We hire people all the time, conditioned on passing a background check.
Well, I think what the chief is saying here is it's the term. You can't have the rank of firefighter until you meet certain criteria. But why can't we hire an individual that doesn't have, quote, the rank of firefighter and pay them until they've proven that they can pass a probationary period, which is the processes that you're trying to gel together, and if they prove not to be acceptable.
And also the added point to it is, once you're appointed, you're sworn into a position. But you can't be sworn into a position until you can perform the position. Do you follow me? Public Act 207 says they have to be sworn into the role of firefighter all the way through the ranks.
So the thing I'm seeing here is that I walk in and I go through some process with the interview panel, and they say, yeah, let's give them a shot. So I now show up and I have to do all these things you talked about, but there's no way that I'm qualified to be a firefighter until I've done all this other process. So essentially I can't be paid because I'm not an employee, or I'm not in a position to be paid because we haven't stated that you're even acceptable. So so then that time period takes, what do you do in that time period? That's what you're asking. How can you get people to apply for it and then spend a month or more going through a process where they can't get paid because they can't be on our payroll because we haven't authorized it? So what can we do to authorize a probationary employee or somebody who's applied for the position but has to go through a process of probation prior to being eligible to be even appointed as a firefighter?
If I may? So it sounds as if until the review panel is satisfied that the person's a good candidate, you wouldn't bother the township board with that.
I don't get notified up until after that point.
Pardon me?
I don't even get notified up until after that point.
So, but the first point in time where you would be notified there's a good candidate would be after that.
Correct.
Then the next steps are all these clearances.
Correct. And the clearances could take anywhere from a few days to 6 to 8 weeks.
But at that first point, the fire chief knows he's got a good candidate subject to being vetted. Couldn't you at that point get it on a board agenda for a conditional appointment?
Yes.
under that scenario, the board's motion, again, subject to Tammy's point, that, you know, that's a policy call for the board as in terms of whether they want to conditionally appoint somebody subject to, you know, the background checks, but the board language could approve the appointment to be effective upon the last of these conditions being satisfied, at which point the employee may be hired.
Yeah, the chief signs off on a checklist that he's got all these
I
credentials.
mean, you know,
But meanwhile, he can't pay that individual if there's 6.
he can't pay the individual until the board's appointment takes effect, but what I'm saying is, the board could, I don't think we want to hire him until we know everything's back, right?
And Ken, to your point about getting sworn in, the clerk's office can swear anybody in for any position anytime. So it doesn't have to be at a board meeting. She can do it in her office anytime. So if you have somebody you like, you put them at a, you know, at the board meeting, say, I want this guy conditioned on him passing all these tests and background, whatever. When that's all done, you take him to the clerk's office and he gets sworn in.
But I guess that's kind of the other point to it too, is once they're appointed, they should be sworn in. And they can't be sworn in until they've met all the state criteria, which is about 2 years.
Yeah.
If they come in with no experience whatsoever, they've got to take their fire 1 and 2, the fire academy, and they've got to take their EMT licensing. When you add all the hours required from those courses, as well as the hours that they have to put in on our vehicles, our equipment, our systems, it's somewhere between 18 months to 2 years before they go, because they're working full-time jobs and doing this.
There's a
I
question
guess I'm
about,
not understanding what the issue is.
there's a
then.
question about compensating them during this training time?
Nope, the question is a matter
trying to cut 2
of
weeks out.
language. If we're appointing them, they should be sworn in. You can't be sworn in until you're qualified to do the job, which the qualifications to do the job don't come until you go through the fire academy and your EMT licensing.
Okay, so once we get all that criteria, and you say they're approved, they're ready to be appointed?
As a firefighter.
Yeah, once they meet the criteria, then I make a
We're
recommendation.
confusing the issue
I was
of
gonna say,
appointing a
this is all-
probationary versus appointing a firefighter. Well, they don't get sworn in until they're a firefighter.
Correct.
So
Are-
what we, yeah.
Aren't you talking about the 2 weeks would be the same like hiring a clerical staff or anybody that you'd go through? I mean, it sounds like it's the front 2 weeks you're worried about.
I'm sorry?
Is it the same as hiring any staff member, that 2 weeks?
It's like the 2 weeks to 30 days you're talking about, right?
Yes.
But isn't that the same like if you hired someone for your department?
But we don't start them until after they're appointed at board level.
But he's just asking to bring it to the board for approval before all those things are in row, and you wait till after all those things
He's
are in
asking to
row?
hire them before he gets to the board.
I want to get them on the books, get their training process
They're
started.
so short
I'll still
people
send you a
that-
letter at the next council meeting that says, we've hired this person to go through the probationary process. At the end of the probationary process, I'll be requesting appointment of this employee.
Next couple of meetings, we've had several coming through. You know, we only hire someone in the office once in a blue moon, but they're hiring on a regular basis.
It feels like it's that same.
And like tonight in the consent agenda, there's 2
It was
people
like
on it.
with me, it was like with me when they hired me. I got all the approvals a week after a board meeting, so I had to wait another 3 weeks for the next board meeting before I could actually start working with the fire department. Now,
So did you have to wait 3 weeks at home because you couldn't be in the station to be compensated?
yes, I could not be compensated by the fire department until I was
Obviously,
approved.
lag time for the meetings, that's one of the big issues. there.
Part of it.
And so now I'm going through the fire academy, and then I'm going to be going through the EMT school. Once I'm done with that, then I gotta work the hours with the department before I finally come to the board to be sworn in.
As
and
a
get
fire-
my helmet.
as a
As a
firefighter,
firefighter.
okay.
You know,
The
so
helmet process.
those 3 weeks, I could have been working at the station, cleaning, taking care of stuff, learning the trucks, learning the trade. And instead, I had to wait until I was approved at the board meeting to do that stuff and start learning.
The board knows that they have to have all these checks before
Right.
they even get brought to you guys or for approval from you guys. So it's not like I'm going to hire somebody without having a background check, without a driving record check, without a.
So you're 3 weeks away from the meeting and everything's in line, but you gotta wait for us to have the next meeting
To rubber stamp.
to rubber
and say, yeah,
stamp
they're
that
okay.
through, so that's what you're saying, so it's that lag time that we're worried about.
Gary?
So, Does the board approve the appointment of firefighters that are gonna be on the 6 months probation under the ordinance?
Not from what I'm understanding here. We're approving the firefighter when they've reached.
Well, but the ordinance says all firefighters shall serve an initial probationary period of at least 6 months. Now, that's.
Well, see, I think what we have is we have an ordinance that's got a semantics flaw.
I'm having trouble with it.
And that, well, the semantics flaw is that
I don't know what.
he's a firefighter to us, but he's not a firefighter.
I don't know
by
what the
law.
concern is with the aversion to amending the ordinance. It's
Should be all
the fact that this is on your agenda and.
Well, here's what I would like to do then. Gary, I'd
Fix it.
like to have a recommendation from you to look at that ordinance and say, what would be the language that we should use in that ordinance to make what the chief is saying
Okay.
work?
The motion would be to request that the township attorney and fire chief present the board with proposed ordinance amendment language at the next meeting.
That's the motion I'm making right there. So.
Support.
All right.
Then he can explain it to me over the phone, and I won't embarrass myself
Moved and
anymore.
supported. Discussion,
I
yes.
have a question on that 6-month thing. That's an appointment by the board for a probationary period. I mean,
Let's not go that direction right now.
Hang on, on that very ordinance, if I'm spending 2 years going through all this stuff, and the chief comes in 3 weeks after he says I can start working with them, that's still more than the 6-month probationary period that the ordinance is talking about.
But you're not a firefighter. I'll talk to you about it later. There's more to that than just.
Yeah, so we're as confused as you are right now. So
We're not gonna answer
we
that.
need some clarification. And so we've have a motion of support to ask our attorney to clarify that language and communicate with the fire chief to do so.
Ready to vote?
So let's vote, please.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
That
We're
was
gonna beat the
interesting.
life out of you tomorrow.
Oh man, we got another one. Now what do you want to do?
All right, as the letter says, we have a 1999 Pierce Rescue Pumper. It's currently in service. It has met its service life. I would like to amend the current policy for sale of equipment where it has to be a sealed bid. Because this is a specialty piece of equipment, if we just do a sealed bid like we did for the pickup truck on Craigslist around here, you're not going to get any bids on it. There are companies on the internet, which I've quoted inside the letter, that specialize in selling used equipment. They sell it not only locally, but they sell it nationally, but they also sell it internationally. I'd like to use that option to sell the piece of equipment. But along those lines, because this is a specialty piece of equipment, and because I have a idea of what I think the value of it should be, which I don't want to mention because if I say it on paper or if I say it in public, then somebody researches the community, they're going to say, oh, we'll take $5 for the truck. I think we have a marketable truck, something that we have value to. I know the current process is to have a sealed bid come back to the township for opening. I'd like to deviate from that, allow me the option to market it through a company, find out what the appropriate market value is, and I don't know if we have to do it through email or if I can be given the authority to approach him for approval to sell it, but eliminate the process of going through a sealed bid. I think going through a sealed bid when you're dealing with something that could be shipped overseas could steer people away from our product or our piece of equipment.
I would like to make it very clear that I had nothing to do with this.
Okay, Gary?
What he's asking for is the board to vary from its policy and allow him to put it on the market in a format that is different than we normally do, and that's what the request is.
I don't want to do it through a sealed bid. I don't want to take some of our market away from bidding on.
Well, you're not buying something, you're selling something.
Right.
It's not the purchase policy,
That's
it's
true.
it's the fixed asset disposition policy.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have one of those? I'm not gonna talk about it,
Well, it's.
but I need a copy, please.
It's a good idea to find a specialty market. I think that's what he's saying. There are specialty markets for
Right.
Mercedes and exotic things, and that's where we need to be marketing stuff. There are people who are buying aircraft, used aircraft, so I think that's where you're going with this. There's probably companies that are professional companies that market those types of pieces, and they're looking for them.
So is this what other fire departments do?
I don't know, I've never been in this position before. Well, in Ohio we were, but and we did market things online through Gov Deals. We just made a comment of what we were selling, we put it on there, and then we get emails back on
Carried.
people that are interested, but that's a completely different state.
So, Tammy, am I correct? Have you looked at the chief's recommendation on page 2? I mean, is there anything that in there that runs afoul of the disposition policy?
Well, our policy says that we need to take sealed bids.
Okay. If the board wanted to go with what the chief's recommendation is, which I don't see a problem with, and I believe that is a common practice, you could make a motion to waive the disposition policy, approve the fire chief's proposal as outlined in his memo, and I'm going to offer a modification to that, provided that any reduction in the list price be approved by the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, and if not, come back to the township board.
Does that allow him to accept an offer?
If it comes in at less, he would need to consult with the 3 of you to confirm that everyone's good with it.
Now, that's based on this number that's in this packet,
35,000.
right?
Well, if I get offered $35,000 for it, the way I understand Gary, I could say, yes, that's fine.
That's
If I
correct.
get offered $34,999, I'd have to approach 3 in-houses, give you the recommendations, and then get some sort of approval from all 3 in consensus, and it'd have to be unanimous.
That's my intention with that language. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think it's a good check and balance.
So moved. What Gary said.
Wait, Start over.
Were you ready for that? Were you?
I got part of it, but I can, yeah.
She knows where to find me.
I know where to find, yeah, that's right.
Okay,
I just
so-
want to get the most bang for our buck out of this vehicle.
So Judy made a motion.
Okay, I just want to throw a little discussion on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we need a second before we?
Support.
Okay, supported. Okay, so discussion on that. I'm concerned with how much less. I would like to add that if 35,000, I would say more like in the range of 30 to 35,000, so that would give you a broader range to be able to make a decision, or you don't need that.
Well, he's negotiating. Why do we worry about?
As soon as you put that lower range in your motion, you've told the world that that's,
What y'all accept?
I think that's bad
Go
business
ahead.
judgment.
He's gonna
That's why I'm
negotiate.
that's why I'm
It's
asking.
not that big of a deal for me. Find 3 of us.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
And see, that way he can tell the bidders how unreasonable the 3 of you are.
Sorry.
Evan.
Sorry, board says you gotta.
Yeah. Okay, the next 2 items are grant applications. This is a format that we've requested from anybody that applies for grants to give us an idea what they're doing and what it's going to commit somebody to. And so this is a form, I think is what we would call it, process. So I'd like to move that we approve the notification grant application for Firehouse Subs Safety Grant in the amount of $25,000.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
So a motion to approve the fire department applying for the
To
grant?
apply for the grant. I'm sorry, that's the correct language. Thank you, Mary.
All right, ready to vote?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay.
I want to
and-
run into a firehouse sub shop here in Highland.
The next item is,
Oh, boy.
I make a motion
We need sewers for one.
to approve the chief to apply for a Vector Enbridge Safe Grant, community grant. The amount is $1,000 each for a total of $2,000. So, did I say the right words on that one?
Yes,
Support?
but there's also,
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out an additional $750 if we do it as a department training process. So
I think what we'll do is we'll approve you to apply for the grant and other alternatives.
Up to $2,750.
Well, if you can get more, why would we stop them?
The whole reason for this is that we're tracking dollars.
Oh, well, she has a point there, okay. Up to $2,750.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Next item, list of bills, 7/26 through 8/3,
And then some add-ons.
and the add-ons that were passed out at the table or emailed at previous time. What do you want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the list of bills from 7/26/2017 and 8/3/2017 and the additions as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right. Public comment.
I was going to ask the gentleman that was here, he's gone now, but do we know how the project's going behind 59 West? Seems to be moving along.
Very well.
He's had to go back and get new perk tests on all the sites and they all passed, so he's working for his health department right now. He's got his water main permit and he's working on the water main. He started the first building. It's coming up.
Awesome. All right, cool. Thank you.
If we could tap his energy, we'd be able to cut our electric bill to zero. He's got more than anybody I've ever seen, so
And
any
his
other public
partner is
comment?
the exact opposite.
Dean, would you like to ask a question? I mean,
No, it's just been a while since I've been here, so I figured out.
well, it's good to see
Stop by
you.
and pay a visit.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming out, and I know you were a part of the previous sewer thing, and we want to make sure that in going forward that everybody's aware of where we're heading and what we can do, so.
I just find it faintly ironic, 'cause I went through the first meeting that they had at the high school when they first proposed any of the sewer stuff. And this poor individual, I have no idea who it was or any representation, stood up there and said, all we're basically asking for is a public opinion of, is anybody interested? And oh my God, it took like 45 minutes just to get everything settled down because nobody wanted to answer the question. We just want to know if you're interested. We're not saying what's going to cost, we're not saying we're going to do it, nothing. We just want to know who's interested. And it's just a perception of the question that gets so skewed because everybody's afraid of the subject. You know, just found it ironic.
That is the single item, the fear factor, that has made it very difficult to move forward on this. For me especially, because one thing I don't want to do is I don't want the public to have that perception. It's so easy to look at this process and just make a lot of assumptions. And we can't see all the effects that we've made with those assumptions. And so I know that we've been through this process before, and it's been hammered pretty well. And it went to the point where all it would have taken the board is to say yes, and the project would have gone forward. Too many other factors jumped in the way. What I believe is the board that had to make that decision, by some stroke of genius and luck, did the absolute right thing to wait, because it wasn't the right time. It may not have been, I'm going to put the may in there because of the question, have been the right way. Now we have the opportunities to look farther into it with background knowledge that we didn't have before. And the public has some of that too. So it wasn't that it wasn't going to happen. And it wasn't that we didn't put a lot of work into it to make it happen. It just couldn't at that time. I think it's bringing the public and making the awareness there and working real hard to that we talk to every single person in this community in some form or another, some way, so that we can say, we're not doing this because we're trying to generate revenue to do something else. We're doing this because we've got a responsibility to the future to see that we can take care of the stuff that's going to toxify our drinking water at some point in time potentially, that's going to make it so that we can't get the value out of our property that we have. And we also have to be responsible to the people that moved here because of the essence that this community has. How do you do all that? It's going to be tough. But first we have to have, once again, start over with those answers, or those questions and numbers to get the start. And it'll be real interesting to see where it goes. I'm sure that I will probably get hammered pretty hard going forward as the supervisor and probably the lead person on this. I've made a lot of statements about this. They're my statements, they're not anybody else's. And so on that, as a part of my public comment, I appreciate your coming. I know that you would have been severely impacted. I know that a whole bunch of other people would have been in a very negative way with what had happened. We don't want that to happen again. We don't want it to go that way. We want it to work and be something you can afford. It might not happen. I can't guarantee anything. So, but we need to have the public say, understand that it's a need. It's not a joke. And we're sitting behind the 8 ball. We're not.
I would say your definition and defining of the master plan is going to be a big factor in there.
Yep. And if you look at that drawing right there, it's hard for a lot of people to see it. That master plan was taken into effect. There's a huge area there that's not serviced. And there's a reason.
Those are from the 99
Right.
meetings that you had before you wrote the master plan.
Right, so that's the kind of thing where you look at it and go, okay, remember what I said earlier about watch what you ask for. That's keeping in mind watching what you're asking for by limiting the system in a way that probably will prevent overload, I hope. And so moving forward, we have to think of the same things. But you also have to look at it, you can't limit it to the point where it won't cover its own cost and bankrupts people. So that's enough in the public kind of thinking. Yes.
New topic,
Yes.
public comment. Richard Russell, 3560 Terra Drive, President of the Friends of Highland Recreation Area. I'd like to make the board aware that we have our annual Haven Hill Festival on Saturday, August the 26th. Part of Haven Hill is in Highland Township. Go up with the lodge site and the master bed splits right between the bed. But we're playing the 1860s baseball game in the morning, and we're most proud in the afternoon to unveil a sign that recognizes the 1956 Girl Scout Senior Roundup, the very first one held, with 5,000 girls and 1,000 leaders. We've got 5 of those rounduppers coming back with guests. We have 9 people from Virginia, Maryland, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. And it really is important, if you've got any interest at all about the heritage that we're trying to project and the importance of where we can go forward with Girl Scout programs. coming to the park. It's an opportunity. And Nancy, your article, we appreciate it. It's in the spinal column, shows the baseball team. But it is an opportunity for us, having worked for almost 10 years as a nonprofit net organization. We think this is one of the most important things that we're doing the afternoon to recognize the Girl Scouts. We have a representative from the Girl Scout office from New York City. She lives in Vermont. She's part of the contingent reception team that will be here. Most of them are going to be housed in Hibbard Tavern, owned by Mark Salwick, so that they can all be together for the weekend that they're here, as they fly in or drive in or whatever. So our last minute activity has been very, very, who's doing what are we trying to do, and how can we handle still visits to the gatehouse, antique and collectible sale at the barn, visits to the lodge, baseball game, and a recognition that's been long overdue for the Girl Scout event that happened for
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank
August 26th.
26th. There is no rain date.
It is the 9th,
It's
August
not gonna
9th.
It's not gonna rain that day.
So, all right, now, thank you for all those that showed up, and what we did is we saved a component. I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session to consider a confidential attorney-client privileged opinion letter.
Dated July 31, 2017.
Thank you.
We will not be making a motion after this, though. Should we let the audience know whether or not will we be making any motion after our closed session? Don't we
I-
need to let people know that?
That's not known at this point.
Okay.
So, I will turn the air conditioning back on if you're so inclined to stay. But please don't feel like you're obligated to. It's something that's important to us, but we do need to discuss it.
I mean, I don't anticipate anything that's going to change the course of events for Highland Township.
Okay, come on.
So we have a motion.
We need a second on that?
Support.
Okay, supported by Brian. All right, roll please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
We take next one, Rich.
Okay, so, all right, we're back in session. And,
I won't forget the.
I move that we go back into session.
okay,
Thank you.
we have to move to go back into session? Yeah, we do.
We already did, we're in our chairs.
I don't think so.
Okay, I think what we do is we
We've had
go,
enough motions this evening.
meeting adjourned.
Alrighty.